Welcome to English Stories for Listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you genuinely want to be fluent in English.
My name is Emily. I was born in a small town in the United States where life felt simple, but I always had big dreams. Ever since I was a child, I loved the sound of words. I loved how people could speak, tell stories, and connect with each other. But there was one problem: I couldn't speak fluently. I remember my school days. Every time the teacher would ask me a question, my heart would race. I would freeze, not knowing what to say. The words felt stuck in my throat. It wasn't that I didn't know the answers, it was that I couldn't find the words fast enough. I was afraid to speak, afraid that I would make a mistake. I would go home and cry, feeling like I would never be able to speak like everyone else. One day, something changed. I met a teacher who believed in me. She told me something I would never forget. "Emily," she said, "the way you speak doesn't define your intelligence. It's how you choose to overcome your challenges that truly matters." Her words stayed with me. They were like a light in the darkness. I started practicing every day. I would stand in front of the mirror and talk to myself. I would read books aloud, even if I stumbled over the words. It was hard, and there were days when I felt like giving up. But then I would remember my teacher's words. I would remind myself that fluency doesn't come from being perfect, it comes from trying, failing, and trying again. During high school, I joined the debate club. I remember my first debate. I was terrified. My hands were shaking and my voice cracked. But I pushed through. I made my points, even though I stumbled. When the debate was over, I felt a rush of pride. I had spoken in front of a room full of people, and even though I wasn't perfect, I had done it. That was a turning point for me. As the years went by, I realized that everyone struggles with speaking in some way. Some people are afraid of public speaking, while others, like me, struggle to find the right words. But the important thing is to keep going, to keep speaking, no matter how hard it is. Fluency isn't about being perfect, it's about being brave enough to speak your truth. There were times when I felt like no one understood my struggle. I would watch my friends speak effortlessly while I fought for every word. It made me feel alone, like I was the only one with this problem. But I wasn't alone. I found that many people, even the ones who seemed confident, were battling their own struggles with fluency. One of my best friends, Sarah, was always the life of the party. She could tell jokes and make people laugh. But one day she confessed something to me. She said that she had a fear of speaking in public. Even though she was so outgoing, the thought of giving a speech made her sick with fear. It was then that I realized that everyone has their own battles with speaking, and we are all on this journey together. There is no quick fix for speaking fluently. It takes time, patience, and practice. But what I've learned is that the journey is worth it. Every time you push through your fears, every time you speak, even when it's hard, you grow stronger. You learn to trust yourself, and that's the most important thing. I remember one day in college when I had to give a presentation. I had been preparing for weeks, but when I stood in front of the class, I froze. The words wouldn't come. I stood there, silent, for what felt like an eternity. I could feel the eyes of my classmates on me, and I wanted to run out of the room. But instead, I took a deep breath and started again. Slowly, the words began to flow. By the end of the presentation, I felt a sense of accomplishment that I had never felt before. It wasn't perfect, but I had done it. Sometimes we think that being fluent means being perfect, but that's not true. Fluency is about being able to express yourself, even when it's hard. It's about having the courage to speak, even when you're afraid. It's about knowing that your voice matters no matter what. There was a time when I thought I would never be able to speak fluently. I thought I would always struggle with my words. But now I know that fluency is not about perfection, it's about perseverance. It's about never giving up, even when the words don't come easily. I want to share a memory that has stayed with me for years. I was in high school and we were preparing for a big speech competition. I had been practicing for weeks, but I still felt nervous. On the day of the competition, my hands were shaking, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. But then my teacher came up to me and said, "Emily, it's not about winning. It's about speaking your truth. Don't worry about being perfect. Just be yourself." Her words gave me the strength to go on stage and speak. I didn't win that day, but I learned something much more important. I learned that speaking fluently is not about being the best, it's about being brave. There will be times when you feel like giving up. There will be days when the words don't come and you feel like you'll never be able to speak fluently. But I want you to remember this: you are not alone. Everyone struggles with speaking in some way. The important thing is to keep going, to keep trying, and to never give up on yourself. As I continued to work on my speaking, I began to see progress. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly I became more confident. I learned to embrace my mistakes, to laugh at myself when I stumbled over a word. I learned that fluency is not about being perfect, it's about being real. One of the most important lessons I've learned is that fluency comes from the heart. It's not about speaking without mistakes, it's about speaking with passion and sincerity. When you speak from the heart, people will listen, even if you stumble over your words. They will hear the message, not the mistakes. There was a time when I thought my struggle with speaking would hold me back. I thought that because I couldn't speak fluently, I would never be able to achieve my dreams. but now I see that my struggle has made me stronger. It has taught me resilience, patience, and the importance of believing in myself. If you are struggling with speaking fluently, I want you to know that it's okay. It's okay to stumble, to make mistakes, and to feel nervous. What matters is that you keep going, that you keep speaking, even when it's hard. Because every time you speak, you are growing stronger. I want to leave you with one final thought. Fluency is not about speaking without mistakes, it's about speaking with courage. It's about being brave enough to share your voice with the world, even when it's hard. So keep speaking, keep trying, and never give up on yourself. You have a voice that deserves to be heard, and the world needs to hear it. As I stand here today, I can proudly say that I am fluent. But fluency didn't come easily. It came from years of hard work, practice, and perseverance. It came from pushing through my fears and believing in myself when no one else did. So, if you are struggling with speaking fluently, remember this: you are not alone. Everyone struggles with speaking in some way. The important thing is to keep going, to keep trying, and to never give up on yourself. The road to fluency is long, and there will be times when you feel like giving up. But I promise you, it's worth it. Keep speaking, keep pushing, and one day you will find your voice. And when you do, the world will listen. I'm still on my journey, and there are days when I still struggle with my words. But I've learned that it's okay. It's okay to not be perfect. What matters is that I keep speaking, that I keep trying. And that's what I want for you. Keep speaking, keep trying, and never give up on yourself. As I continue to share my story, I want to give you some tips that helped me along the way. These tips are not just for becoming fluent in speech, but also for finding your confidence and overcoming the fear of speaking. First, remember that practice is everything. You can't become fluent overnight, and that's okay. Every time you speak, whether it's to a friend, a family member, or even to yourself in the mirror, you're making progress. Think of it like learning a musical instrument. The more you practice, the more comfortable you get, and soon the music flows naturally. It's the same with speech. I used to stand in front of the mirror and pretend I was giving a speech. At first it felt awkward, and I would criticize myself for every little mistake. But with time, I became more relaxed. I started focusing less on being perfect and more on expressing what I wanted to say. This small daily practice made a big difference. I wasn't preparing for anything big, just for life itself, and that took the pressure off. Another important tip is to take your time. Don't rush when you speak. It's natural to feel like you have to talk fast, especially when you're nervous, but slowing down can actually help you find the right words. When I started slowing down, I realized that I had more control over what I was saying. It gave me time to think, to breathe, and to speak more clearly. I'll never forget the advice a friend gave me. She said, "Speak like you're telling a story that you want people to remember." It changed everything for me. Instead of thinking about getting through my words as fast as I could, I started thinking about the meaning behind them. Speaking became less about perfection and more about connection. The next time you speak, think about the story you're telling, not about the fear of making mistakes. It's also helpful to break things down into smaller steps. When I first started working on my fluency, I would set small, manageable goals. One week, I focused on making eye contact while speaking. The next week, I focused on controlling my breathing. These little steps built up over time, and before I knew it, I was speaking with more ease. You don't have to change everything at once. Just focus on one thing at a time, and soon you'll see progress. One thing that really helped me was recording myself. I used to be terrified of hearing my own voice, but when I started recording my speeches, I noticed things I could improve. More importantly, I noticed the things I was doing right. Sometimes we are our own worst critics, but when you listen to yourself speak, you can learn to appreciate your progress. Recording yourself is a powerful tool because it shows you where you are and how far you've come. Another tip that I've found useful is surrounding yourself with supportive people. Find people who encourage you to speak and who are patient when you're struggling. I had a small group of friends who would listen to me practice, and they never made me feel bad when I stumbled. Their support gave me the courage to keep going. Speaking fluently is a journey, and having people who believe in you makes that journey easier. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes. This is something that took me a long time to accept. For a long time, I believed that making a mistake meant that I wasn't good enough. But the truth is, mistakes are part of the process. They are not signs of failure, but opportunities to learn. Every time you make a mistake, you're one step closer to getting it right. One story that stands out for me happened during my final year in college. I was supposed to give a speech in front of a large audience. I had practiced for weeks, but on the day of the event, I completely blanked out midway through. I stood there in silence, feeling the weight of the crowd's eyes on me. It was one of the scariest moments of my life. But then, something remarkable happened. Instead of panicking, I took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry I lost my place." Let me start again. The audience didn't judge me for it. In fact, they applauded when I finished. That moment taught me that mistakes are okay. What matters is how you handle them. A powerful quote that I carry with me is, "Courage doesn't always roar." Sometimes, courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, "I will try again tomorrow." Speaking fluently takes courage, And sometimes that courage is simply the decision to keep trying, even when it's hard. Don't be afraid to try again. Another thing that helped me was finding my own voice. It's easy to compare yourself to others and think that you have to speak like them to be fluent. But fluency is not about sounding like someone else, it's about finding your own way of expressing yourself. I used to try to copy the way others spoke, but it never felt right. When I started embracing my own style, my own rhythm, speaking became much easier. Find your voice and don't be afraid to use it. Visualization is another powerful tool. Before I had to give a speech, I would close my eyes and imagine myself speaking confidently. I would picture myself standing tall, speaking clearly, and feeling calm. This mental practice helped me feel more prepared when it was time to actually speak. It's amazing how much power our minds have. If you can see yourself speaking fluently in your mind, it becomes easier to do it in real life. One more tip is to celebrate your small victories. Every time you push through your fear and speak, even if it's just a little, celebrate that. It's easy to focus on the things you didn't do perfectly, but take a moment to acknowledge what you did right. Every step forward is progress, no matter how small. Lastly, I want to remind you to be patient with yourself. Fluency doesn't come overnight, and that's okay. You will have good days and bad days, but the most important thing is to keep going. It's a journey, not a race. Be kind to yourself along the way and trust that you are getting better every day. You are capable of speaking fluently and you deserve to be heard. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and never give up on yourself. The more you speak, the more confident you will become. And one day you'll look back and realize how far you've come. As I continue my journey, I still have moments where I struggle with my words. But I know that's okay. Speaking fluently is not about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to keep speaking. And I promise you, with time, patience, and practice, you will find your voice, and it will be beautiful.